I'm waiting to see if this thing goes live. It looks like we should be trying to see around my thing. It's like a happy Saturday here. Good. We're live. Wait a minute. It looks like I hope everybody can hear me. Unmute. Happy Saturday here. Good. We're live. There we go. Good. All right. Annie's not here today. What a bummer, right? Annie had a bad, she worked her butt off and now she's feeling it. And so everybody give a pray for Annie. I hate that she can't make it. She's just one of those days where she's in too much pain. So let's send some prayers out. And Annie, her thing is that Wim Hof is going out into that cold creek. I mean, it's 19 degrees. You think she'll walk barefoot to the creek that's probably, I don't know, 30 yards from her house and jump in a watering hole that goes up to here? Yeah, she will. Oh. But, I mean, it does amazing things for her. So whether I can, she's trying to get me to go up to that and do some ice baths, and I just haven't got there. I do the ice cold showers, but not the ice baths, not yet. But good morning, everybody. I see some people are starting to come on. Diana, good morning. Susie Q, good. I'm glad you can hear me. I noticed that on our YouTube live stream, there's a mute button, and apparently it's so I don't hear myself. So I just learned that, and Annie always runs all this stuff for me, so I'm just kind of learning as I go along. Good morning, Red Label, whoever that is. I always love to start with the Bible verse, and because today I was like, I was getting up and I was trying to think about what to talk about. This is what happens Saturday mornings. Okay, God, give me some insight. What am I to speak about? What's the subject? Talked about choice. We've talked about many things on this show, and today it's know your influence. What is your influence? And then it comes to me, from Acts 10:38, how God anointed Jesus of Nazareth with the Holy Spirit and power, and how he went around doing good and healing all who were under the power of the devil, because God was with him. That's an interesting, that's an interesting Bible verse that just kind of brings to light that all who were under the power of devil were being healed. So it's like, are we all influenced to where our health is something of this world? I mean, think about it. If we were in the Garden of Eden, we'd all be perfectly healthy, right? And so the world's fallen. Why? Well, it's sin, and it separates us from God, and that's where we need atonement. It's all that stuff. So I'm just glad we have Christ to bring that bridge back to us and give us that ability to find that health. And I hope that what I bring and what you guys find here to be truth, because if you don't find it to be truth, challenge me. Send me something, email me, say, hey, Doc, how the hell did you come up with that? Because I can't find anything that makes sense. And you're just pulling that out of nowhere. And if you show me where I tell people don't believe a word I say, but rather instead to prove or tell me where I'm wrong. I'm just taking information from people who have gone before me and trying to bring it out and say, let's make some sense of this. Because in relation to health, I think health is possible and that there's basic mechanisms that are out there. And how can we identify those basic mechanisms? And I just kept taking it, from cellular concept, which I even wrote a paper once about cellular concepts. Cellular optimization. It's in Naturopathic Doctor News and Review. If you go to docmisak.com, there's articles there. I believe it's posted on there, or you can go to NDNR, Naturopathic Doctor News and Review, ndnr.com, I believe, and you type my name in the search, it'll pop up. And I wrote a paper about how we need to optimize the cellular environment. How that I got blood flowing behind me, and we need to optimize that environment, and it just gives us some type of ability to see and analyze. And that's where I've gone with everything, is how can I identify a pattern or how to analyze something that says where what's going on and why, based on what mechanisms we understand and know. So good morning, Jack. Good morning, Marty. Annie is not here today. She is feeling it. She is in pain, couldn't get out of bed. She said she couldn't make it. So again, send prayers out her way, people. Betty Hernandez. Betty, if you want on, you should join me sometimes. You text me and I'll kind of stop here and take a picture for people, of or take a picture for you to get you on this Zoom meeting. But Betty, it's good to hear from you. Dianara, Jack, good morning, Leah. So one of the things that I'm just sitting there, what to talk about, and today it was just influence. What are your influences? And one of the things we always, Carolyn is in here. Way to go, Carolyn. But the know your influence, because I've got a set of numbers, and I used to go on these RBTI chat groups and I'd look at them, and people would be putting like one set. I can't get my bricks controlled, or I can't get my pH to come up, or I can't get my nitrates to go down, or my nitrates are low, I can't get them to come up. And you have to realize that when you look at a mathematical equation, if you take a piece of the equation and then try to solve that, and the other half you never even looked at, it's not going to work out. It just doesn't. You have to look at the whole equation. So I go back on these chat groups and I turn around and say, give me a full set of numbers and I can tell you something. And then you get a full set of numbers, somebody would reply, okay, here's a full set of numbers, but they're not giving you an idea of what they're doing. Okay, because if I turn around and say, here, take vitalometry, and I give you my product, vitalometry, is it going to influence the numbers? Do B vitamins influence the numbers? Do the calciums that you take or anything that you take influence the numbers? Heck yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing is whenever you're taking a picture, so I try to explain RBTI as an aspect of taking a picture in time and taking a picture and looking at the efficiency of what's going on right then and there. And so when you do, those nitrates are telling you as much as that pH, as much as that, cell debris or any of the numbers, because they all influence one another, or they are, one of the things that you always heard from Reams is everything is relative. Math is relative, but all things are relative to one another. And what Badeau taught was relativity between these numbers, that, like the ratio of sugar to salts should be 1 to 5, and how that could be influenced by too much sea salt or Himalayan salt, or that could be nitrates and you could be detoxifying. Nobody talks in that context, unfortunately, in the RBTI community. But when you see the salts go up, so the sugars kind of stay, the pHs are fairly decent in that A-B range, and then all of a sudden your salts are going up to a 1 to 8, 1 to 10 ratio, and your nitrates are popping up to 20, 21. What's going on? Your body is dumping stuff. Good energy on the front end of the equation, poor energy on the back, you're dumping. So you need to know the influence of what's happening whenever you're looking at numbers. So let me see what else we got here. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Everybody's saying good morning. I appreciate it. Hi from Florida. Hey, got to be better than the 19 degrees I'm dealing with right now. Let's see, but I don't mind it. I turn around and I want to talk a little bit about fasting today. Somebody needs to remind me if I get off track. But I go and the cold, I have to adapt to it, and I find that breathing is the best way to adapt to that cold. If I'm breathing well, sometimes if it's so cold outside, I want something over my mouth just to kind of. That's the best part about this mask law, right? Is that you can actually, that has you breathe a little bit warmer air when it's 19 degrees outside. But let's see. I hope Andy feels better soon. Me too. Thank you. I'm trying to watch while doing errands. Well, that's good. The human brain can only focus on one thing at a time. So there's a great show. I love it. It's on Disney, National Geographic, the Disney Plus National Geographic, and it's called Brain Games. And everybody should watch like the first 3 episodes. Particularly the second one about attention, and the third one, I can't remember. But it basically is showing that the human brain, as much as we think that we're multitasking, you're only really ever focused on one thing at a time. And so they have this guy with sleight of hand, and the whole thing is he's got you focused here while he's over here doing this with this hand and stealing your scarf or whatever else, and you don't even know it because he's got you so focused. And so just be careful watching. If you're watching my video, particularly while driving, you shouldn't be doing that. But there, just keep in mind that we are not humans that we think that we multitask well, but research shows that we don't, people. So let me see what else we got here. Good morning, Betty. When are you going to have another nutrition class? Ah, there you go. Is there a site you trust listing recommended daily supplements and dosage levels? Well, I mean that's a whole thing. Is you do based upon your your numbers, and so I've given people, say your saliva pH is 6.1 and won't come up. I've given people 5-10 milligrams of vitamin B12, and I'm giving them up to 10 to 20 milligrams of folic acid. But I don't do that for a long time. Same with if you go back and look at what Dr. Reams and Bedeau talked about with vitamin D, is if your urine pH is below 6.1, they would give 50,000 units a day until that urine pH came up. While they're giving the right calciums and doing some other things to influence those numbers and looking at what you're eating, of course. But the idea is do you have some type of analytical perspective of what's going on? So like I got blood behind me, and blood tells me, how well are you utilizing your proteins? How inflamed are you? Are you, there's a lot of information that you gather from looking at live blood, and so, when you're looking at, recommended doses, there are probably hundreds of websites out there, and most of the time you can just go to a high quality company, professional company that sells professional line supplements. And usually they'll turn around and they'll have supplements that cover the gamut of anything from immune support to liver support to B vitamins to whatever. And you can go and look at their basics and the recommendations that they have, because they're going to only recommend things that are within a particular guideline. The thing is how do you know when to take more? I mean, how about vitamin B1? Vitamin B1 or B3, niacin. Niacin's one that we can turn around and take 25 to 100 milligrams and flush and be like, oh, this is crazy. But then when you look at the research behind niacin, it actually suggests that we should be taking probably between 2 to 3,000 milligrams a day, to support the functions that it does in supporting circulation and healthy cholesterol levels, but most importantly with DNA formation. And so the idea is what's a therapeutic level versus what is a recommended daily allowance. Recommended daily allowance is only there to prevent you from getting a deficiency, period. You take this much in the multivitamin, we're giving you all your RDAs, and so you should never show signs of deficiency. Well, guess what? You give your body a little bit of something where it needs a lot more, it still is deficient, right? It's just you're preventing it from going into the true diseases associated with that deficiency, is what the whole basis of multivitamins are. And so I don't use multis. Very, very rarely do I use multivitamins. If I do, I use whole food based multis because I'm giving people specifics. I know you need this, and that's where we kind of go from. So let me see. Um, Betty, we are having meetings every last Tuesday. For those who took my first class, have you been getting the invites? Okay. Let's see, can you recommend a good and inexpensive conductivity meter? An inexpensive conductivity meter, I would tell you to get the what's it called? It's got two little probes, the DHIST 4, I believe it is. It's just you got to stick the two probes down inside the urine, so you have to have enough urine to do it. I love the Hariba meter, but yeah, it's expensive. It's like $160, $180, something like that. And the Hariba meter, you got to get the EC22, not the EC11, because the EC11 only measures conductivity up to a certain point, and then if you have somebody who's got concentrated urine, you have to do the dilution, and you don't want to deal with that. Where you take, okay, I'm maxed out, so now I need to dilute my urine with equal amounts of water, retest the conductivity, and then calculate out what it is. So we tell people to get the EC22, but the DIST 4 is actually a relatively affordable conductivity meter that does reach the higher amounts, the higher levels, And you just have to have enough urine to put it in. They clean it a little differently too. Um, let's see, Dinara. One of my relatives was diagnosed with an enlarged heart. What is it, and how can he help himself if he doesn't want to do surgery? Is there any way to clean the blood vessels in alternative ways? Yeah, totally. When you're looking at that an enlarged heart, the enlarged heart happens usually on one side, usually the left side, and it usually comes from stress from the heart trying to push against poor elasticity, lack of collagen, low vitamin C, that there's too much pressure in the system. The heart doesn't just enlarge. I mean, there's something that's driving that, whether, so most of the time you're finding things that improve circulation. Flavonoids, colorful fruits and vegetables, is where you get dark berries primarily, so you're going to find, the blueberry, the blackberries, the strawberries, even the berries tend to have these high flavonoid aspects, and anything that you do for circulation, which is usually you're going to find these berry extracts, you're doing for the heart as well. The problem is that person has a lot of stress, and so it's going to lose the contractility. So people talk about taking some CoQ10. People talk about affecting the fat levels and using L-carnitine and pantethine. When people have decreased heart ejection fractions and they're not ejecting as much and congestive heart failure, those three nutrients do wonders. L-carnitine, CoQ10, and pantothenic acid, particularly pantethine. Usually you do about 300 milligrams 3 times a day of the pantethine. You do about 1,000 milligrams 2 to 3 times a day of the L-carnitine on an empty stomach. And you usually get people about 2 to 400 milligrams of CoQ10 in a day, and sometimes I just give 300, But and I had a lady who had an ejection fraction of less than 18% in her 70s, and then a year later her ejection fraction was over 30%. Her doctor was like, "We don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it." And it was on those three nutrients. So you can strengthen the heart to help the aspect. You have adequate amounts of vitamin C and flavonoids, but that comes with running a set of numbers and seeing where people are. Vitamin C directly is affected with your energy levels. So let's see, Lauren Jones. Good morning, Lauren. Have those dogs seen any changes with that canine telemetry? If you've seen something, let me know. Um, Betty, Carolyn, private message. Okay, there we go. Jack, is one of your in one of your videos, you said Dr. Kerry Ream said some people need a little alcohol. Was it to regulate sugars? Yes. And was gin best? Yes. He used London London fog or whatever gin, but gin was the best. He actually had a thing, and he mixed up called Zest Tonic, and Zest Tonic was a mixture of apricot brandy, peppermint brandy, or peppermint schnapps. I think it's peppermint brandy, and gin. And if you go and look in Badeau's book, Badeau has the recipe for it, and Brixman actually has the recipe for it online. Brixman, Rex Harrell, Brixman.com. And but what you would typically do is if you were a person of crashing sugars and you're cold all the time, a little bit of alcohol will actually in you're not going to generate enough heat because of the low sugar content. So he would give a teaspoon of Zest Tonic at the end of a meal, and if you got a mild headache, then it was too much. Then he'd go to a half a teaspoon. And then when a half a teaspoon started causing a mild headache, he'd go to a quarter teaspoon. To where what you're doing is you're giving a little bit of alcohol with the meals for somebody who is chronically low. And to my knowledge, Reams himself was nipping quite often. And Betty can comment to that because of his, we knew he had shrapnel in his pancreas, and we knew he had horrible sugar regulation. So, to my knowledge, the man had a sweet tooth, and the man he would nip from a little bit of alcohol to keep his sugars where they needed to be. So maybe Betty can comment to that in the comments. But Yeah, yes, definitely there is a place for alcohol, but when you look at alcohol, it's the it's the enemy of oxygen. So those of you who are thinking, doc, just give the okay to booze it up a little bit, not exactly. That alcohol is going to displace your sugars. And it's going to starve your body and your brain of sugar, and therefore alcohol as well. Starve your brain of alcohol, or God, I can't even say it. Starve your brain of oxygen. It's going to affect your oxygen availability, and therefore you're going to, that's where you see it affects the cerebellum. You get a little bit, wonky in how you're walking and stuff. Lauren Jones, they love it. They have all been playing more out in the yard. Good. Yeah, I've noticed that every time we put it on our dog's food, she would sit there and lick the bowl for another 5 minutes, and it looked like there was nothing in there. So yeah, Lauren's just commenting in the aspect to we brought out canine telemetry, people. It's a version of vitalometry, and for dogs, and it kept my dog alive for 2 extra years. Her cataracts got better. She got bladder control. She could walk up and down the stairs. She started playing like a puppy again. And every dog that's old that I've given it to has just seen miraculous changes. And when we give it to younger dogs, they tend to play. They tend to, get some energy back. And, so it's not, my whole basis of that was anti-aging. So as a younger dog, I would tell people, to not worry about a full dose of it, even just to give them some as even a half dose, to stretch it out and see if you notice those same benefits, because you're giving those nutrients that have something to help prevent that aging process, to slow it down, to boost the immune system, to help the liver, to help circulation. And so, yeah, I'm glad, Lauren. It's awesome to hear that, because we've had, it's just we've seen so many positive. And those of you who are interested, if you go to Vitalometry, vitalometry.com, Vitelometry, should be scrolling across the bottom of your screen. It says, use Doc Misak and get 15% off. We actually have a sale right now introducing canine telemetry. And if you use Clara, Clara, that was the name of my dog, you get 12% off. In trying it, but I think the Doc Misak will work as well. You might be able to get the 15% off. I thought we were going to get 10%, and my office manager. So Lauren, it looks like I owe you 2% on that one. So Betty, when I was 16, he had 14 heart attacks in 2 weeks due to blood clots that had released from the multiple war injuries. It was the gin that saved his life. There you go. Alcohol thins the blood. And so Dr. Reams used it in a different way. So hello from Zambia. Hey, Luke, nice that you could join. I'm glad you're there. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today was fasting, because I don't think that we fast enough. I think that we should fast and petition God on a regular basis. I've gone through periods where I would fast one day a week, but every Sunday, but drove my family crazy because they wanted to go out to eat after church. And I'd be like, okay, and then occasionally I'd go with them, and I'd be like, just bring me water, and I wouldn't even drink their water because it's crap. I'd always have my own water or lemonade, or I just bring the lemonade in, and I'd sip on lemonade, take a gulp or two while they're eating, and I'm like, no, I can't do this. But on one day a week, I would just do, a Reams fast and do water and lemonade all day long. And I'm not telling anybody to do a Reams fast, by the way, because if you don't know your numbers and you are really in a bad place, a Reams fast will make you sick, people. It will kick your butt. It can put some of you in the hospital because it'll mobilize junk. It'll stimulate your liver. You're maintaining sugars while you're flushing out the waste with just pure distilled water, and you're just telling the body to dump. But there's a lot of information, because when you went to a retreat, you fasted, period. He would depend based upon when you came in on whether it would be a fast or whether he would do a light diet. He would do. So I think the best person to put the diets in perspective with how to start a retreat was Paul Braddock. And I need to get Paul back on this show. Betty, you and Paul, we got to do a show again together. Just let's do it. Let's make it happen. But Paul Braddock, he put together, understanding of Reams analysis, but in there he explained the fasting diet with light diet for 3 days versus a light diet for 6 days, and just different ways to introduce it. But every single time, he started with whether you would turn around and uh, start with fasting was based upon your numbers. He'd say that. And then he'd say whether you drink the lemonade was based upon your numbers. You don't want to drink your lemonade if and start a lemonade Reams fast, particularly if you're in the heart attack zone. And but then he would talk about people who would do, fasting versus a 3 day light meal. Whenever you do light meals, don't do oils. It was only vegetables. It was getting rid of all the no foods. It was very light meal, and it was about 500 calories a day. He'd say up to 800, but he'd say typically about 500 calories a day, and and resting, rest. That was a huge factor. Are you getting rest? And those nitrates will tell you whether you're getting rest if you run some numbers. And some people he would do them on, and who are still working and stuff, he would do a 6 day light fast. And the 6 day light fast was about 1,000 to 1,200 calories still. No foods, taking the supplements that were based upon your numbers, minimizing and oils or only doing healthy oils. I love avocado or olive oil because they're monounsaturated. And he would turn around but what you would do is you'd run the numbers. When you run and even in I don't know, Betty, if it's Badeau's book or if it was in your dad's book or where it was, but they talked about when fasting, how to monitor a set of numbers, and you basically fast until you see your nitrates bottom out to, usually to less than adding up to 6 or 7. You'll get numbers like 1/5, or 1/3. And so when we talk about influence, so if somebody brings me a set of numbers and I see a 1/3, or a 1/5, and then depending on, and you just took those, that one picture, I'm looking at those nitrates, you could turn around and start thinking brain tumor. What, without even looking at all the other numbers. And that's what I'm telling you. You always look at all these numbers together. You know, brain tumors, you're going to see pHs above 8, you're going to see Brix's above 8, and you're going to see those nitrates just bottom out, And so those pHs steer on the high, on that y-axis. So when you see a pH above 7.4, think the brain. Think something's going on. Hey, it can be sinuses, particularly if it's above 8. Have you had a concussion? Or something going on. If you run somebody after a stroke, you'll see a pH above 8. And it's amazing how the numbers just guide you in that direction. But with fasting, fasting is amazing, people, and I highly recommend fasting. I really do, but I don't tell people just to start fasting, but rather to get a grip on where their numbers are and to get an idea of what their numbers are doing before you start to fast. And when you get your numbers in a healthy pattern, if you can get in the B range, a fast is great, but if you're a little bit sluggish, you might want to do some colonics during that fast, or even coffee enemas each morning. And you'll read, if you read Paul Braddock stuff, he talks about doing a coffee enema each morning with fasting, just to help eliminate those matters. And if you want to, what is those matters? Go back and look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it talks about getting a gourd and filling it up with water and hanging it in a tree with a tube and shoving it up your rear and flushing out the impurities. And so basically, when you're fasting, you're telling your body to dump. And so I fast and I do colonics almost every day. So if I do a 5-day, 3 to 5 day fast, I'll be doing 3 to 5 colonics, But I also now, most of my fasting, I do what I call goop cleanses. I'm taking binders and stuff to clean out my gut. And if I watch my numbers, I see the same pattern. What happens with your numbers, you control your sugars while you're fasting with what? Lemonade. You make sure that you're drinking something, or some people do juice, and juice fasting and watching that. But the whole idea is you can't let your sugars bottom out, because if you're fasting, you're going to know if your sugars are low. You're going to be like, what? I need to sleep. I need to rest. Just can't keep my eyes open. You're gonna feel it. Those sugars, your brain just, if they go low, you're from not eating anything, you're gonna have low sugars. So when I fast, I do goop cleanses. I do these things where I'm using packets of psyllium and clay, and I do them 5 times a day and 8 ounces of apple juice. So that's giving me just over 400 calories a day. I can still function. I can still go to work. I can still do whatever. But if I am doing that and I'm feeling those sugar lows because I'm overdoing it, I will turn around and drink lemonade. And then I will drink less water to make sure that I don't bottom out my sugar, so I can still have my brain while I'm at work. And so, but if you're do a true, Reams fast, people, you need to rest. Don't plan things. You need to have decent numbers before you go into it. And what you do is you watch where what happens in a range fast is you go by the nitrates. The nitrates will drop and they'll go down to less than 6. You might get a 2/4 or a 2/3 or a 1/5, or even it looks like a 0. Like, oh my God, I don't see anything in there. It's like a 0/5, because you have no protein. You're not breaking down anything for sustenance um, about day 2 or 3. And then all of a sudden, boom, the nitrates spike up and they're over 12. And that's when Reams would break the fast, because what happened is your biochemistry converts and says, okay, I'm not getting any calories. I'm going to convert over to breaking down my own body and proteins, and it's going to spike up. Okay. If you continue that fast, even through that spike, it'll drop back down, usually where you're seeing somewhere between 6 and 12, and your body switches over to ketosis. If you're measuring your urine, boom, your ketones just go skyrocket high. And usually about day 5 of a water fast, you'll see your body goes into a straight ketosis. And do not do a water fast unless you're being followed, people. Just don't do it. I mean, if you do a water fast, you should be followed by a health professional, or really understand what you're doing with regards to RBTI. I've done Reams fasting, get my sugars controlled, go through. I see the numbers spike. I stay on the Reams fast, and then I've switched to a water fast for another 3 or 4 days. But I believe me, you gotta rest, people. You detox, and I do colonics. I'm just flushing out the junk, and making sure that I'm not accumulating putrid matter per se. But fasting is just incredible. It resets the chemistry. So when you look at if you go back, and we go back to Paul Braddock, and we have him talk about this, and he talks about a light meal, a light meals, or light, I can't remember. He called it a light diet or something like that. And he did that for 6 days or something. One of my favorites to help people to prepare if they're not able to fast is what I call as a protein dumping diet. And we do acid fruits until noon. We do low starch vegetables from noon on. Eat all you want, Don't get the sugar lows. And I still recommend lemonade after the meals to stimulate the digestive process. I still have people taking their supplements. I've had people lose a bunch of weight on it, but it resets the chemistry. At the end of 10 days of that, it's like a Daniel fast. You have people who have gotten rid of all those inflammatory markers, and they're just like, my pain is gone. How did that happen? And because you're not triggering that off, and you reset the chemistry. And as you reintroduce foods, you watch your numbers, you watch the bricks, you watch the pH, and you see how, when you're bringing food back in, what is it doing, and how am I feeling, and how is it reacting analytically? So this protein dumping diet is a wonderful diet to just reset people's chemistry and help. It's easy to do. Well, I wouldn't say it's easy because somewhere usually around day 4 to 6, people will be like, "Oh my God, just give me some protein, a bite of cheese or whatever." They crave that protein. So let me see. We got a couple comments here. Jackie just bought 3 bottles of canine telemetry. Doc Misak code didn't work, but was able to use Clara. Yeah, I thought so. I thought that the Doc Misak was specific for vitalometry, and I don't. My office, the uh, manager who runs the company, I let him make those decisions, and I just agree with him. So, but yeah, Clara is 12% off. So I'm glad. Again, I hope you see the benefits because we're just seeing wonderful things happen with it. Zoltan was told every pound of fat was worth 2 meals when lost at sea. Interesting. Every pound of fat was worth 2 meals when lost at sea. I could see that. I could because fat. If you break down food, and one of the things that I try to teach people, and it's not RBTI, is food science, is the basics of calories, how to determine your calories, your basal metabolic rate. What is the equation for your basal metabolic rate? It's all in the handouts that I give people who do testing or buy testing equipment through me, or people who come to my office, or people who do it'll probably be in my book. I don't just give it out to people. But what we do is we teach people how to calculate your basal metabolic rate, which says, hey, at this metabolic rate, if I eat this many calories, I stay this weight. Oh, this is good for me. But no, I need to lose weight. So you need to drop between 500 to 1,000 calories. And typically you'll lose 1 to 3 pounds because it's a negative calorie balance. But when you're looking at calories are heat forming units. And so when you're looking at energy, it's either heat or electricity. When things break apart, they release electricity, but the heat generated from food is for energy for you and I. And so calories, I can see we're 2 pounds of fat, keto diet, people. You're eating high calories because each gram of fat is 9.4 kilocalories versus each gram of carbohydrate is 3.4 kilocalories. And each gram of protein is about 4.3 kilocalories. So therefore, 2 pounds of fat would be 2 meals. Hell yeah. It'll last you some time. That'll hold you over some time if you're eating that fat. I can see that. Interesting concept, though. If eating mostly vegetables gives me diarrhea, should I take enzymes or hydrochloric acid? Eating mostly meat seems to work better for me. So what it is you got to run the numbers. If you're too acidic, then or your gastrointestinal tract is already inflamed, those vegetables are going to irritate your digestive tract because of most people getting leaky gut syndrome and getting irritation and chronic inflammation. So you got to look and see, am I eating vegetables that I'm reacting to? So I find like the brassica family, the cabbage and the broccoli and the cauliflower and the Brussels sprouts. Some people rips them up. They irritate their food sensitivity. Most commonly in vegetables, I see the nightshades, the potatoes, and the tomatoes, and the peppers, eggplant, okra. We see that irritates people. And yeah, if you have something that's triggering an inflammation process, it'll inflame you. So what meats and fats do is they slow down digestion. So if you look at a fast oxidizer diet, it correlates with the DE diet. People who have acid pHs. The problem is people who have acid pHs typically have an acid urine pH, and they typically have an alkaline saliva pH. So Linda, where you're getting diarrhea, I'd ask what that saliva pH is. If your saliva pH is 6.6 or above, then yeah, you'd benefit from enzymes. You'd benefit from betaine hydrochloride, and it would help you to break those things down because you're turning around and your liver and your strength of your bile is too weak. I'd ask, are you doing lemon with your meals? And if you are, yeah, having, you do the 1 ounce of lemon to 9 ounces of distilled water and drink a third of that. Drink about 3 ounces after your meals. That will help stimulate that digestive process. But if you have a sluggish saliva pH, then by all means, you should benefit from um, some betaine hydrochloride and some digestive enzymes. There were people who ran retreat centers and they put everybody on enzymes. If you look at Badeau's book, he talks about taking enzymes. My thing is I'm a purist. Let me stimulate your body to make those enzymes by giving what Reams showed us. The basic minerals that you need. You have to have calcium in that liver. You have to have trace amount of iron. Eat your greens, right? You have to have trace amount of iodine. Algas them. Or eat some seaweed or a nori sheet at least one a day. Get some iodine in your diet if you're trying to do it with food. And you have the calciums we choose based upon where the pH is and what calciums you need. And if you want, go to the DE diet or the BC diet and pick your calciums based upon, or pick your foods based upon those calciums to change that pH. That's the whole goal of it. But in the A range, you can eat both sides of the equation, and you want to get all 6 of those forms of calcium in your diet daily. So, and you still do, even if you're eating a DE diet, it's okay to eat a BC food and mix it in. Just eat the majority of your foods as a DE. Okay? Majority of the foods that'll raise the pH, but have a little bit of that BC because you need the counterbalance. If you just start eating foods that are in the DE diet only, then you're going to turn around and, oh my God, now I'm too alkaline. I got to switch to BC. Oh, now I'm too acid. I got to switch to the DE. No. You start balancing them out. You start changing your ratios. You start getting in that A range and eating all the foods, but you're making sure you're eating from both sides of that scale. So you are balancing your chemistry. That's the whole idea. What's influencing your chemistry? That's today. When we run a set of numbers, you have to look at what's influencing that set of numbers. Diet, number 1. Water. What kind of water? If you're drinking tap water, ouch. Look at the numbers. It'll be screwy, people. It'll mess with your bricks. It'll mess with particularly your conductivity. You will not get a 1-to-5 ratio on your sugar to salts if you're drinking tap water or Dasani or some of the crappy waters. Distilled water is pure. It is wet water. It is heavy water. It will adapt to your frequency. It will make your body more hydrate, but it'll flush out that crap, and it will wash out minerals. But most people are getting too many minerals that they can't utilize. Just look at your conductivity. So, I always hear, but distilled water is going to flush out my minerals. I'm like, go look at the studies. Follow, backtrack. Why does modern medicine say that distilled water flushes out your minerals? Backtrack. Where are they making that assumption? What research are they using? And you will find that they use 2 studies, one looking at calcium excretion and one looking at urine conductivity. And they did it for 2 weeks. 2-week study of the urine. My conductivity went up, my calcium excretion went up. Hell yeah! If you've never drank distilled water, by all means, how long does it take for chemistry to reset? A minimum of 7 to 14 days. Okay? Number 1, if you change somebody's diet, you retest them in 7 to 10 days. At the soonest, 2 weeks is what I tell people. If you have your own testing equipment, test every 2 weeks. Why? Because you're resetting the chemistry and your body's adjusting to the new levels. So if you start drinking distilled water, is your conductivity going to go up? Hell yeah, you're going to flush the stuff out. After you stabilize your chemistry, some people it takes 3 months, 10 to 12 weeks, and you watch those numbers, you're going to see that conductivity and that calcium excretion is stable and normal. Anyway, where are we? Marcia, 77-year-old lady, 126-pound Christian test, taken at 11 a.m., 2 hours after eating. 1.0. Oh my, we got some numbers, but let's look at those. 1.0, I guess you guys want me to write them down anyway. Somebody say yes real quick if you want me to write the numbers out, or are you just going to look at them on that board? Let me see. And nobody's replying, but I'll write them out anyway. So let's see what we got. We got a 77-year-old female and whoops, male. I did the male symbol. How about that? Let's see. 77-year-old female, 126 pounds, and my pen's not writing. And we have 1.0, 7.2 over 5.5. You better retest that saliva pH because she probably had some food residue in her mouth. 17.36 or 17.4 conductivity, 4M plus. This lady is sick, and 5 over 5. Okay, so people, you got somebody who's really, and one thing that really makes a difference when you're looking at a set of numbers, So look at this, here's somebody who's older. So you got to take into consideration, okay, are they of childbearing years? Hell no. So do they need as much calcium? Typically not if they've been taking it. There's a lot that comes into play. 126 pounds. So what was her height? I don't see height because you could be 126 pounds. You think most women are between 5'1" and 5'6"? So 126 pounds, probably somewhere near okay, right? They're not too heavy. But if they're 4'10", they're a little heavy, right? So height does make a difference. But you look here, which numbers are furthest from ideal? Is the way some people do this. Well, those nitrates are close to ideal, 5 over 5. That's pretty good, right? No, not in this case. So first, start with sugars. Low sugars, 1.0. So this is a dear friend of mine. Knack at night. It's an antioxidant. Good. Okay, height's 5'4". So when you look at this, sugar regulation, but what do you notice? Sugar to salt, 1 to 17. Oh my, this person is storing salt or dumping it. And if they're dumping it, why are those nitrates not out, right? So so this person's getting some salt from somewhere. Either that or your meter needs to be, what is the word I'm looking for? I can't even think of it. Um, oh my God, my brain just went blank on standardizing your meter. And can you believe that? But anyway, so she's got a calibrating. Thank you, God. So 1.0 sugars. So not enough energy, right? Low energy, not enough potential energy. And then the strength of the magnetism of a 5 over 5, low magnetism. And what low magnetism are they frequenting in at? Of a pH of 7.2. So things are way sluggish, not enough energy. Things are slowing down, and they're very weak. This person is sick. Okay, so when you're looking at that, and you have a saliva pH of 5.5, right? That means that bile is in the E range, right? 5.49 is the E range or below. So you're in an E range of the strength of your liver bile, and but one thing that's interesting is you got a 5 out here. So they're trying to break down food, but the weakness here and everything's slowing down to try to handle it. So what do? You got to control this sugar. You got to get them some energy, and you got to get this person digesting some food by strengthening this bile. So this person, digestive enzymes, heck yeah. Only eating pureed foods or cooked vegetables right now, by all means. If I'm going to bring in some protein, I'm only going to give this person maybe some beans, or some type of vegetable-based protein because they are not tolerating. This 5 here says that they're either too weak or they're not putrefying things too bad, so this is okay. But those nitrates are way low. So greens, this person could deal with some juicing some greens, using some carrot, celery, maybe even a little bit of beet to stimulate that digestive juice. when I'm cooking foods, I would look at that DE diet and pick out, artichokes. If I were giving them protein, I might give them an egg, poached egg, but not more than 3 times a week, maybe, and see if that poached egg will bring up those proteins. Because you gotta see this. Is the person too weak to do coffee enemas? Coffee enemas will help flush out because things are moving way too slow, and but they'll stimulate that liver. You know, what supplements are you using? I would just use a little bit of Mincol in this case, maybe some cal lactate, but it's not about pushing more supplements. I would give this person lots of vitamin C. And so the reason being is the vitamin C is going to speed things up because if you can't get a coffee enema because they're too weak, this person's weak. They're too weak to do an enema. Vitamin C will hopefully just at least flush them out. This is the kind of person that you could do like a vitamin C flush and just help flush this stuff out. There's so many things here, but this person, you need to be drinking. Let me see. You guys are commenting. I keep seeing comments come. Thank you. She doesn't eat salt. Yeah, so she's dumping, she's breaking down, but that if you're breaking down, you should see that 5 be like a 10, 12, where things are coming down. It's good that this is down, so her body's trying to assimilate something, but I would only be giving this person like, pureed juices or cooked fruits and cooked vegetables, maybe some fruit. But I might try poached egg and see, or some beans. Something if you're doing protein, I would look at vegetable-based proteins and see what happens with. You got to watch. I'd be testing this person's bricks and their urine pH and their saliva pH every time they pee, and see what's going on to see the pattern and see what can bring this up. If I were to, you can, BC foods, typically see fish. DE, you typically see meat, maybe some eggs. So I would limit any protein to eggs and beans don't even do well with the DEs. I think on the DE foods, um, they should use dry beans. So you soak beans overnight and then cook those beans during the day, and probably no more than a half a cup, to try for starters, and see if they can eat some beans that were dry beans, and that might help. But the problem is this high saliva or high urine pH. So you start eating these DE foods, and if it drives that pH up, you're like, okay, I can't do that. So most people turn around and say, give me colonics, let's flush it out, let's get that liver going, drink some greens. This is somebody you gotta it's food, people. You gotta get the bowels moving. So I would do, like I said, I do coffee enemas in this person. I would do kind of only vegetable based meals. If you have a juicer, you could do some juicing. It looks like you might have been giving some green juice or something to drive it up to a 7.2. But when you see that 7.2, you're looking at, okay, what's going on in the sinuses? What's going on in the teeth area? You're looking at a potential for a thyroid. It's going to be weak because of lack of potassium. I would be giving this person potassium. In addition to whatever supplements you're doing, I would definitely do some potassium. I would definitely do some B12, because their liver is just screaming and they're going to be anemic in this picture. They're going to have, their blood's going to be all clumped together. So this is just this person. This is somebody who needs to be either in a retreat, needs to be followed where they're monitoring your numbers and with what you're eating, and then see what foods will move these numbers. And you got to get this sugar regulation up. Period. You start with sugar and this pH. What foods are going to affect the pH? And vitamin C. That vitamin C is going to help because that conductivity is so stinking high, everything's getting rigid and hard and thick. And vitamin C is going to help to not only move the bowels and eliminate, vitamin C helps that elasticity for collagen formation. People who take supplements, you could do collagen in this case because collagen, would be a source of protein, a liquid source of protein, and it would help with the elasticity of what's going on with them. So that is not somebody that you do a consult over a video chat. This is somebody who that number one, calibrate your meter your conductivity meter, and two, I make sure that I recheck that saliva pH by rinsing with some distilled water a few times and rechecking it, because when I see a pH below a saliva pH below 6.0, I rinse and swallow some distilled water and recheck to see if you had some residue in that saliva, particularly whether you're chewing your food well. Uh, Doc, she's taking a statin for cholesterol, low dose aspirin. Yeah, I mean that's going to thin her blood. You know, I wouldn't complain about the low dose aspirin, but her liver's on fire. Is that statin benefiting her at this point? You know, that's where I would look and see what's her blood pressure. What's her oxygen sats. There's a little bit more that needs to be involved there. Her liver is stressed, really stressed, and particularly, she's just not digesting food, so she's not going to get the energy she needs out of her food. And that 17.4, is that statin driving that up? I mean, that's possible, but I go back and that's a hot mess. You guys give me the hard cases here, right? So let's see, calibrated. Thank you, Lauren. See, I couldn't get the word. So speaking of NAC, are N-acetylcysteine eye drops useful for treating cataracts? Yeah, it's acetyl L-carnosine eye drops. Acetyl L-carnosine eye drops. They're called Bright Eyes. I carry them in my office, and yes, studies have shown that they help improve the elimination of advanced glycation end products, age products that accumulate when the eye does not detoxify and eliminate very well. Which usually, again, like that person, 17.4, she's going to get cataracts if she doesn't have them already, on her conductivity with a bricks of one. Yeah, they're called uh, Bright Eyes. Brite Eyes 3 is the eye drops. We have them at our office. You have to use them 2 drops 4 times a day, though. If you have active cataracts, I got a little bug in here. 2 drops 4 times a day, and you can't put 2 drops in the eye like 1, 2. You got to do 1 drop, wait 3 to 5 minutes, then do the second drop. A little bit of a pain in the butt, but if it's your vision, uh, you know, over probably a 10 to 12 week period, at least 3 months, you want to try those. So let's see. Next, I bought a jar of K9 for my 19-year-old mini. Oh, your 19-year-old mini pincher. I want to hear about it next week if you just got it. Get away from me. So, little bug right there. So, what else? Get away from me. There you are. Gotcha. Um, let's see. Has been using Can C eye drops for 6 months. Don't need glasses to read. Try the NAC stuff, but made me feel crappy. Yeah, I don't know what Can C eye drops are, but it's acetyl L-carnosine is what has been shown. And the government, the FDA, will not allow anybody to put acetyl L-carnosine as an active ingredient. So when you buy them, it doesn't even say it on the box. But in the package insert, it says inactive ingredients, 1% acetyl L-carnosine, because the FDA took them off the thing several times. My vision improved using Can-C 10 minutes, but has deteriorated over the past 2 months. She is local. Thank you for recommendations. Yes, Just Lee, do you currently use? I don't know. Can-C, I'm assuming he's asking. People, we're at an hour again. I think that it goes by so stinking fast. I would say for our 77-year-old lady, everybody send a prayer out for her. And that lady needs a little bit of help. So let's hope that we can, that she responds. I hope to see some numbers again in a week or two. And let's see how she's responding to that. I thank you for tuning in again, people. Influence. What is your influence? Is the question. Mental, emotional influences are spiritual influences, physical influences, to dietary influences. I mean, those. If you're looking at numbers and measuring something on a regular basis, I think you have to take into consideration what somebody is doing. So just looking at those numbers and again, not knowing what she is currently taking, that doesn't give me a complete picture. What's influencing those numbers? What are you feeding her? What are you giving her? So just gives you a perspective that there's many things that can influence those numbers and what we need to be doing. Um, I see some things coming in before I say take care. Thank you so much. Testing her weekly. Good. Hopefully I'll get the K9 before next Saturday. Good. Thank you so much for a great video lesson. You are welcome. God bless you all. I thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week. And hopefully Annie will be here.